Hey everybody, it's Christina. Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about cultivating workplace skills and building a professional image. We're going to talk about why those are important. So, take a minute and think about a job you'd love to land after college, or maybe it is a promotion in your current organization, or maybe you're watching this and you're just thinking about, okay, I want to look at a different job. I want to land a different job. What are some of the things you think your future employer or your current employer is looking for? Not just on paper, like not just your resume, your cover letter, but in the day-to-day reality of the workplace. Well, today in this video, I'm going to unpack a few things for you that can literally make or break your professional success. And that is your workplace skills and your professional image. Now, both of these can be fairly controversial in today's world. And so, what I'm going to encourage you is think about what's in this lecture and apply it to you and your situation. Okay. Like, we're not in the 1950s where everybody has to wear a three-piece suit to work. We're in 2025 and things are a little bit different. But your workplace skills and how you show up and your professional image are really important. They're not just buzzwords. These are actual things, keys that open doors to promotions, to workplace respect, and even longevity in your career. And so let me get to my next slide. Like I said, what we're going to look at is we're going to identify some key workplace skills that employers actually value today. This is based on research. So you can look these up. Forbes has great articles. Indeed has great articles. Rogue Workforce has some great information if you want to do some local review of that. We're going to also talk about how to develop and demonstrate those skills. You need to be able to talk about yourself to an employer. And then we're going to look at the importance of professional image and what that means for different industries. Then we're going to reflect on how personal brand impacts your perception. The good news is, if you're in class with me right now, you've already done quite a bit of work on personal brand. And so you have a good understanding of what your personal brand is all about. Okay, here are the top workplace skills. This is not an exhaustive list, by the way, but these are the top workplace skills that employers are looking for. Communication, and this could mean verbal, written, and digital. Now, if you're in any class with me, you know that I like hammer out the written communication, right? Here's the thing. When you're submitting resumes, applications, cover letters to employers, it is a fiercely competitive job market. And if you have typos in your documents, you are literally going to get passed by. Like they don't care. They're just going to pass your work on. So this is why proofreading your resume, your cover letter, everything that you submit, really paying attention to detail is important here. Communication, verbal, written, and digital is the number one skill that employers are valuing and looking for. Next is teamwork. How do you collaborate in a team? How do you deal with conflict resolution? How do you work in both in-person and virtual teams? That's a part of our reality today. The next skill is problem solving. So, do you take initiative? Can you use critical thinking skills, or are you a person who needs your boss to tell you everything? You want to definitely develop that skill of problem solving if it's not a strength of yours yet. And then adaptability. So this is all about like a willingness to learn, a willingness to pivot when we need to. And are you tech savvy, or can you at least figure things out technology wise? If you're in school, if you're in college right now, you probably have a little bit of tech savvy in your belt there. Next is work ethic. Now, this is kind of an old-fashioned term for some people, but work ethic really means, are you dependable? Are you accountable? So, are you going to show up when you're supposed to show up? And are you going to be doing what you're supposed to be doing while you're at work? Or are you a person who, like, you might show up a little bit late, you might leave a little bit early, you might take a little bit longer of a lunch, you're at your desk, but you're like doing some social media stuff? That is not having a good work ethic. Having a good work ethic means you're dependable, You're accountable. Your boss knows or your supervisor knows, hey, if I tell Christina I need this report by this date, she's going to have it done. That's just an example of a good work ethic. Next is emotional intelligence, y'all. If you are not aware of emotional intelligence, I want to encourage you, just do a quick Google search, go on YouTube, find a couple of videos. Emotional intelligence is all about your self-awareness and your ability to have empathy for others. Emotional intelligence is kind of a buzzword in the workforce today, and it's also a really important skill if you're not aware of it, if you haven't heard of it, or if you've heard of it and you just don't know very much about it. It's a really good time to go and dig in and see what you can learn about emotional intelligence. And the last one on this list, which is certainly not last in order of importance, is time management. So, can you prioritize? Can you meet deadlines? And school is a really good place. Like, this is a good testing ground for this. Are you always missing deadlines in school? Are you always finding yourself at the last minute trying to do all of your assignments for the week? If that's you, like, no judgment. You might need to think about working on time management as developing a skill that is going to help you in the workplace. And here's the thing, like, technical knowledge, technical know-how can get your foot in the door, but it's your soft skills that are going to help you stay in the room, stay employed, and continue to promote. In fact, many employers say they can teach someone how to do a task, but they can't train someone to show up on time. They can't train someone to think critically. They can't teach someone to have really good empathetic communication skills. Those are what can be called your core competencies. Okay, so let's look at next why those soft skills matter. So, like I said, the hard skills, the technical things get you hired. Those soft skills are what employers are looking for. Are you emotionally intelligent? Can you communicate with even complicated or complex customers? So I use this example from my days in the banking industry. And at one time, I was responsible for hiring people. And what I would always say to my team that we were looking to hire folks, we can train someone on all the banking regulations. We can train them how to count money. We can train them how to balance their cash drawer. We can even train them how to be good salespeople. What we could not teach, though, was how to be a kind human being, how to listen with empathy, how to, let a customer tell their story and then hold space for that. So those are those soft skills that we're talking about. Okay, how do you develop these workplace skills? Well, you know the old saying, practice makes perfect. You can practice your communication in everyday life. Like, how are you showing up in class? How, if you're a student worker, how are you showing up in your student worker job? If you have a part-time job, how are you communicating every day on a day-to-day basis? How are you handling conflict? If you haven't had an opportunity yet, we teach a class at the college about conflict management, and you get to use real world examples from your experience in that class. So if you haven't taken that one, it's a good idea to check it out. You could also join teams or clubs at the school or even out in the world. There's many clubs, there's many things you could join, like Toastmasters. You could go to Chamber of Commerce events. But those places help you develop collaboration skills in what we call like a low stakes environment. So, in a club here at school, you could join and practice your leadership and your communication skills, and it's a low stakes environment. What that means is your job isn't on the line if you mess it up. Like, you're allowed that grace to kind of learn as you go. Next is one of my favorite, also the one I hate the most. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship for me, is reflect and grow from your mistakes. Guess what? You're human, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. You're going to botch it up really big at some point. But try to use those setbacks to reflect and to build some resilience and to grow from them. Um, I often tell my students, like, look, when you mess up, just own it and learn from it and grow from it because you probably won't do that again. Next, we've talked about time management already, but like manage your calendar. Figure out if you're a paper calendar person, if you're a digital calendar person. Really think about if even if you like some of the AI tools for time management, there are so many out there right now. What I will say though is don't get into analysis paralysis when you're trying to find a tool. Like, you know, pretty quickly, am I a paper person? Am I a digital person? And so if you're a paper person, maybe it's a notepad and a calendar. If you're a digital person, maybe you want to use Notion or a Google Calendar or some other way. Just figure out what's going to work for you. And the last one on this list, how to develop those skills, is to ask for and apply the feedback. And so you can ask people around you, classmates, supervisors, coworkers, hey, I'm working on my communication skills, or I'm working on my time management skills. Can you kind of observe and give me some feedback? Um, and most of the time, people will do that for you. Here's what I will share though. If you ask for feedback, get ready because sometimes when we ask for feedback, people really, really give us feedback. And sometimes they don't really think about focusing on all the positive things. They focus on the things we could improve. And so sometimes receiving feedback can be a little bit painful at first. And if ever you want to chat about that, how to do this feedback deal, just let me know. I'm happy to talk to you about it. So here's the good thing. You don't need a full-time job to build workplace skills. You can work out these little skills into group projects, into volunteer work, internships, even by helping run a student club. So yeah, if you need some ideas on how to develop or practice your skills, definitely reach out and let me know. Okay, next we're going to talk about professional image. And back in the day, people thought professional image meant the dress code at the place you worked. And I can remember back in my days of being a corporate trainer in the banking world, um, we had an actual dress code. So it was like a little pamphlet, like a paper dress code, like a handout that basically said for guys, this is what you can wear, and for females, this is what you can wear. Now, granted, this was like 15 years ago. And so, always when I was doing training classes, a funny thing would happen, on the you can't wear were things like halter tops and fishnet stockings. And people would say, what, like, really? Do people think somebody would wear a halter top or fishnet stockings into like as a bank employee? Now, keep in mind, this was like in the 90s, early 2000s. And I would say, well, people only make rules when people like do something and we're like, wow, we should have had a rule about that. So yeah, probably somebody did come into work one day in a halter top and fishnets and, thought they were going to like be a professional banker for someone. Now, I have no judgment if you wear halter tops or fishnets. I'm just telling you a story from like 15 years ago. So, today though, like dress code, it's so different. Professional image is so different. Some places do have dress code. If you think about one of our local businesses here in Oregon is Dutch Brothers. And they have a really cool, like, professional image, right? What's their professional image? They all wear Dutch Brothers gear. So like t-shirts, hoodies, whatever. Their behavior is always like a peppy attitude. They're always asking about how your day is going, what are your plans? And so they have, if you work at Dutch Brothers, there's a real like strong professional image, but it's not like a an image of like a financial planner, a banker, or a doctor, right? It's a different professional image. And so that's why I give those two examples of back in the day in the banking industry and then today in Dutch Brothers. Those are both examples of professional image. So there's four categories of professional image. And as I go through these, I want to invite you to do a little like self-reflection or a little self-inventory, if you will, and just think like, how am I currently in this area of professional image? And do I need to make any adjustments or alterations? It's just a question for you to reflect on. So the first category is visual image. So what's your dress like your physical clothes? What's your grooming like? Is your hair neat or is it kind of like a mess? How's your posture? Do you have a posture of confidence? Now, the posture is not like, are you standing up straight? Is your posture that of an engaged person? Are you warm and inviting, or are you like closed off and nobody wants to do business with you? So think about that for yourself. How are you doing on visual image? Is there anything that you would want to change? And I want to be really careful in this area because a lot of times people can go into like body image and things like that. We're literally just talking about your professional image. So imagine if you're going for an interview or if you're showing up at the workplace, and that's what we're talking about. So we're not going really deep into like the mindset about some image things that might be in some of our minds. Okay, next is behavioral image. So my grandmother used to say, Christina, watch how you act in public because that's how people are going to judge you. And that's literally what we're talking about on behavioral image. Okay. You probably act differently with your friends, maybe on a camping trip or out at the river on the weekend, than you do when you're in a professional environment. Perhaps. I don't know. Maybe you act the same all the places. But behavioral image is about your attitude, your punctuality. Like, what is it about you? Like, how do you behave? How do you act in a professional setting? Digital image, so your digital professional image, y'all, this is one to really consider, to really think about. Back in the day, we didn't have social media, and so people couldn't go check you out when you applied for a job. Today, they can, and many times they do. So, do a little audit of your social media. Do a little audit of your email. Like if your email is bunnyface226971 at whatever email, and maybe you want to reconsider that. Maybe you want to have a professional that is, like your first letter in your last name or your whole name or something like that. So consider removing dates from your email address. Sometimes that can kind of trigger some bias for people that are reviewing or the systems. Sometimes people put their high school graduation date in their email address. I'm not sure why. Some people put their birth year, not sure why, but just make sure that your email that you're using on your job documents is a professional email. And if you have questions about that, just let me know. And if you want to hear some of the funny ones I've seen over the years, I'm happy to share that list with you. There's some pretty funny ones I've seen. And last, the professional image category is reputation. This is what do others say about you? And this is one that I'm not sure it would actually impact you in a job search, except for we live in a small area. And sometimes it really seems like everybody knows everybody. And though people on interview panels and search committees are supposed to keep those things confidential, sometimes they ask, hey, do you know so and so? They applied for a job here. And people will say, yeah, they're great, or you know what, they kind of have a nasty attitude. So you just want to manage your professional reputation, and make sure that it is what you hope, or what you want it to be, I should say. You have control over that. It's basically your reputation precedes you, and that means your reputation goes ahead of you. All right. So next, why professional image matters. I think I've covered this pretty much in the points we made earlier, but it builds your trust and credibility and impacts your career opportunities. Definitely it influences how others respond to you, especially about the like posture if you have confidence. And and look, the last one is reflects confidence and readiness. Okay, so that professional image really does matter. And again, I want to invite you, take a couple minutes, maybe you take out a journal or a notebook paper and just jot down like what are some things that you're doing really well in those categories, and what are some things that you might need to change. Okay, here's a little real life scenario for you to think about. So we have two candidates. Okay, candidate one shows up late. They're dressed really casually. Let's say this is an insurance agent office, customer facing that we're going to be interviewing for. So they're dressed pretty casually. Maybe they have on a hoodie, and some pants, and they're kind of distracted. They kind of keep looking at their phone or at their watch. And when we look at their resume and their cover letter, they've got typos all over the place. So that's candidate one. Candidate two, they arrive a little bit early, not freakishly early, but a few minutes early. They're dressed professionally, like they would be working in an office. They're attentive and they ask some questions during our interview, and they have an actual career portfolio with no errors. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like which of these two are gonna do well in the interview? Which of these two are going to get, an opportunity for that job? Definitely candidate two, right? Candidate one, if you arrive late to an interview, that's a really big signal that you probably might arrive late to work every day, even though something might have happened. That's why it's really important to make sure you plan plenty of time when you've got an interview coming up. And so, who makes the better impression? Obviously, it is candidate number two in this scenario. Okay, so now it's time to reflect and time to take action. There's not an official assignment on this for this week in class, but I would encourage you to think about these questions, to think about what you need to do or change or revise. So those questions are, what skill do I need to grow? So a skill or skills, maybe it's multiples. What impression do I give off when I'm in a professional setting? Am I warm and open? Am I kind of cold and jagged? Is that the impression you want to give off? It's totally up to you. You get to pick it. The little kind of light green, it's really hard to see, but it says, what can I improve this week? I am a firm believer that if you do one tiny little baby step every week, one tiny little improvement over the time of a term or over the time of a year, oh my goodness, you're going to make some massive changes. But nobody can make a massive change in one swipe. It takes many, many, many little tiny actions to make that momentum happen. And then the last question is, how do I want to be remembered? So think about when you leave a job or when you leave an interview, what do you want those people to say about you? Me personally, I want them to say, oh my gosh, we have got to get her on our team. That's literally what I want people to leave with. So yeah, just some questions for you to reflect on this week. Okay, final thoughts. Your workplace success is not just about having a good resume. Okay, it's not just about your great cover letter. It's about who you are in the room, in the inbox, right? In the back and forth conversations to set up the email. It's also about who you are under pressure. So when you develop your workplace skills and you polish your professional image, you're literally investing in your future. Your reputation matters. Your confidence matters. These are things that you can work on. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be intentional. So I want to encourage you all, be intentional, be prepared, and be your best. Okay. As I said, there's no official assignments for this week, but you are welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions this week. Definitely spend that time working on your final portfolio and your informational interview submission. All right, folks, have a great week.